In the last couple of months, I was able to track down this Sherlock minifigure, custom printed by Minibigs, and I actually watched through the whole show in that time frame as well, which is why I'm very excited for the video today, because Pantasy reached out to me for a collab, and I was able to secure this officially branded 221B apartment based on, the Sherlock Holmes mythos, but interior is definitely going to be a lot more based on the show from the BBC with, Benedict Cumberbatch. Box is actually going to be super nice with some nice detailing on the sides. You can see here with the different measurements for the build, the logo on the side. This other side is going to also have the logo. These are going to be Go bricks, which is a brick that is similar to Lego, but pretty much the same shapes and everything. Different company though. Part number for the set. I'm just really impressed. There's like a nice raised feeling for some of the print on here to make it feel a little bit fancier and a little more premium. And on the back, details about play features, different design aspects for the interior. It's going to be a modular system, so easy to get into the different floors. Very excited to check this out. And the box is actually pretty hefty. I was surprised by how heavy it is. It's going to be a lot of parts. And as like a comparison, here is the box next to like a Lego modular. It's going to be a little shorter, but honestly, Lego boxes are pretty empty to begin with. And it is actually going to be a little bit thicker than a lot of Lego boxes, I feel like, as well. Kind of nice on the back of the box to open it. This has some tabs to hold it, and you're going to have all these different bags with the Pantasy logos on them. And they are actually going to be numbered, which is nice. I thought that was a patent by Lego. There's a ton of bags. It's going to be numbered through 17. We'll have 2 different instruction manuals to get this build completed. And there is a separate bag for the minifigure type characters that are very unique, and I am glad to see them have a fun and interesting way to do different characters. That being said, let's check out these. There is some assembly required for each of these characters. Going to be separate feet, hands, arms, etc. It is interesting the torso is 2 parts, but does come pre-assembled with the sort of upper legs already connected. I was kind of interested to see how this worked, since kind of felt like the feet might be mobile, but there is like a little cut in the leg where the foot is only able to be positioned in one way. It does seem like for the most part everything is symmetrical, so you don't have to worry about that. The arms also have some printing on them, so there are some very cool pieces here. It is kind of interesting to see them do their own sort of character like this, since it won't necessarily scale what the build will do, but it is nice and refreshing to see them have their unique take on characters for their builds. And for the most part, it does have a similar amount of articulation, other than the legs being immobile. It's kind of funny to see on the head that there's a stud in the middle, with it mostly being hollow, but you're able to attach different hats, different hairs. And we have Sherlock here. Looks like there's like a little bit of mess with the printing on the face. There's some smudges, but let's take a look at this and the rest of the characters. I think the set comes with a perfect amount of characters and has everybody I would want. Got the Lego version of Sherlock again. And I do like that they went with a more classic look for Sherlock here with the, checkered suit look, which I feel like is pretty iconic from what I can remember from just my memory of the character. Hat looks nice too. No design up there though. Same will go for Watson. Miss Hudson I feel like is a little bit back heavy for some reason, so I put her on a plate for this part since the skirt piece is different, so her whole leg setup is different, which is weird. She has the most detailed hairpiece, or only hairpiece, I think, for the set, if I remember right. Everybody else has hats, so that is also different. And for some of the male characters, it's a little bit harder to tell the parts apart from each other, so it was nice that they included an instruction page to kind of detail how to build everybody. Very appreciated. I believe this is Lestrade, going off the back of my head of what his name was, and of course Moriarty looking evil. His hat has a little bit of print on there for like the feather. And it's kind of cool, everybody's got a distinctive look. He's got like the orange eyes, which are different, a scar. I think everybody else is a little bit closer maybe, since these two both have the blue eyes, and he has a set of black eyes. So a little bit different for everybody. Everyone's got a little bit of variety in their designs. For the non-separated parts, you got a couple bags here, 2 of which having like the clear window type pieces. you have a bag of all the different larger plates and then all these 16 by 16 plates, 5 of those. So it is kind of nice that the glass pieces are going to be separate. Probably helps them from getting scratched a little bit, and having all of the windows together, I guess, could be helpful. And when it comes to the separated bags, it seemed like they're averaging about 3 bags per number section. Number 1 is 4. There might be a couple other that have 4, but for the most part, it'll be like 2 or 3. And the 2 instruction booklets have the same cover, just with a different number to distinguish which one it is. Feels pretty premium. Looks like the first one here has stickers in it, and maybe the second one too, for that half. I'm gonna guess just the one hopefully has stickers, but it is nice that they place them in the instruction booklet to keep them a little bit safer. You know, some little notes about the products, and like Lego instructions, you're gonna have the separated areas for what part from the bags build what part of the build. So it is nice to still have that sort of separated to kind of give you an idea as you are building what to expect and how long the, separate sections should probably last. I'm really excited to take a look at this build. It seems like it's going to be a fun time, and I have been waiting, to get this in hand, honestly. I'm glad I got it from Pantasy. So thank you for reaching out to me. The first bag basically just makes the base for the building. It is interesting to see how they do the inside there with different bricks to support the plates to basically make it a Mills plated modular building. There are some pins on the side. I'm not sure if those will come into play later or if it is just to fit with Lego modulars, but that is another fun detail. There are also some fun little builds for stairs in the front that I'm seeing so far, so those are really nice too. While there are a couple of stickers, the majority of the details in this set are actually going to be pad printed parts, so that's honestly exciting to see, along with the characters that are also printed. It looks like most of the stickers are probably just interior details and could be left off, other than the Sherlock Holmes one here. And there are some really cool mirror parts that'll probably be used for mirrors. Excited to see how these kind of get put in. These are just the printed parts from bag 1. I'm sure there will be more as we go along. After the first bag, we hung up the paintings, built some stairs for the next level. There's like a secret room with like a hinge to get to like the chest and one of the prints. Stairs, feel a little bit on the tall side maybe, but who knows? I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. Everything feels like it's holding together pretty well. It's got great clutch. And you also got the fun Pantasy brick separator that's pink and has the logo printed on it. Surprisingly, the interior for this little room is actually well decorated. You got the hat rack there, which is a little bit unstable with that bar connection to the cylinder piece down there, the cone. That's fun to get the pith hat there, probably to reference the Sherlock hat, and they just didn't mold the specific hat for that in the minifigure scale, which is fine. It is interesting too with like the paintings. Those are 3x4 tiles, which don't exist in the Lego palette. So it is kind of nice to see them have their unique parts that they're molding for their sets. Overall, the build experience is going to be basically identical to that of like a Lego modular. So if you like those, you're going to enjoy this. It is interesting though to see the entire walled off area here built separately from whatever is going to be in this area. I know that does happen in some of the modulars. I can't remember which one they built recently, where it was like that, maybe the police station. And it gets to the most tedious part of modulars, and you're gonna either love those sets or hate them. So that is just gonna be actually tiling off everything with the individual parts. But there's a really cool piece here with the printed door with 21B print on there. So that is cool to see. And as I already mentioned, for builds like this or something like a Lego modular, there's a lot of tedious work. Whether it is like the floor, like this tiling, it always looks amazing. Just takes a while to get through, but really enjoying the look of this so far. At the beginning of bag 3, we're going to be putting on the mirrors onto these very cool 2x4 flat silver. We're using Lego color pieces. There's a lot of marbling, or as the Foosh calls it, swirly twirly plastic on those pieces, unfortunately, but it is nice. You're going to cover them with a sticker anyway, and feeling the plastic, there is an actual texture. It just looks like that visually. It is really interesting for these mirror stickers. There isn't like a little bit of paper surrounding this like Lego sticker sheets. They are just the loose metallic parts on there. Let's see if I can get a flawless placement on the sticker here. Would love to do that. From the Blacktron set, you can see that I'm not the best at it maybe. But there is kind of an interesting sturdiness to these stickers. Oh, and I fucked it up. And I already did mess it up. Let's see, second attempt. Oh, geez. I feel like the size of the sticker is like the exact same size as the piece. And obviously the doing it on camera aspect of this does make it a little more difficult. Yeah, there's like a little bit of overhang. I wish the stickers were a little bit smaller so it doesn't cover up as much of the part, but I did my best and doesn't overhang that much. Yeah, and there is a very small room for error. This is the second one that I feel like I got a little bit better, but those stickers basically are the same size as the piece, which makes it a little bit harder to place. To fill in the interior for the cafe, built 3 identical tables and 12 seats, and these will just be placed throughout the cafe to fill it in. You know, the builds are a little simple. You're not going to be able to put anything extra on the table since they do use a tile instead of plates. And I think this is a nice little way to fill in the space and everything looks fine. Having the dark brown chairs contrast the reddish brown definitely looks good too. And it is interesting to see on the bottles that they have like a flat silver top. Of course, I kind of brought it up already. The characters are not going to be able to sit or anything and they don't scale super well, but you can have them stand on the chairs. There's enough space. I've noticed that one design inconsistency that's a little strange is that on the carpet there going down the stairs, you can see that they stopped doing the checkerboard for no reason. Not sure why they did that, but I followed the instructions on there. When building a coffee machine for the interior, I also get some really cool, unique pieces, being brackets, but when you actually press them down onto the plates, it lays flush and basically works as a snot brick where parts actually lay, you know, flat against it. There's no extra gap. So that's really interesting. Obviously, I feel like maybe the like studded connections could be a little bit weaker and could in theory break, but that is a cool part. And another really cool part being a plate with studs on both sides. I feel like it's not super necessary in the example that they use it for the spouts for the coffee machine that we were also just looking at, since, you know, they could just use the stud and bar connections upside down, but it's still cool. And that is a nice part. I'm interested to see if they use that more throughout the build. Overall, I think the interior is really fun, even though it might not be like super based on the Sherlock show even, or obviously the books, since this is a very modern diner, or I guess cafe, coffee shop basically, where they serve donuts and muffins, where I feel like in the show it's like a fish and chips or like sandwich place downstairs. But really like the espresso machine. The coffee cup setup in the back is really nice. The sink also cool to build. And it just looks great. I'm a big fan and we're going to build up the rest of the walls now. And one more look at the interior before we close it up. More printed parts for paintings. This little bakery rack here is nice. I was kind of trying to figure out what it was going to be when I started building, since there's like the fork and then like silver something there. So I guess maybe those are supposed to be plates, tissue, whatever, to pick out the, I guess, pink donuts or bread of some sort, I'm assuming. So that's also a fun little assembly and uses one of the panel pieces to kind of give it some extra depth. The exterior for the bottom floor is a little plain. You got the 2 tables, the chairs that are kind of interestingly placed to make like the balcony. It is sort of an interesting build using more of those double-sided plates to get the sort of bread loaf tiles in green as sort of hanging down fabric bits. It does use the cardinal sin for older Lego sets where it has a sticker across multiple parts though, and just placing the final couple of tiles and I guess plate tile combo, and we have the first floor done. So far on the second floor from Big 6 is a little plain. You got more of the steps going. You again put a sticker across multiple parts to make this mirror. There's sort of an interesting assembly here for the doorway, which is going to create an angle. And I skipped some steps to kind of do this more seamlessly for video, but works pretty well and makes some separation. To fill the interior, you start with a refrigerator with 2 different doors. Only one of them has stuff in it with a pink bit and a bone, so I guess that could be a brain. It would have been nice if there was a head of some sort in here to be a reference to the, you know, series Sherlock. And this is kind of nice in the instructions. They do give you a little bit of guidance on where to actually put it. Since there's going to be a gap on one of the sides, they do want the gap on the side over there. Next up is a little bit of like an experiment table, and it's kind of interesting. Their 2x2 tile there with the stud in the middle has like a little square outline, but that gets covered up with some really cool test tubes in different colors, which are nice to see molded in different colors. Just goes on there. You can adjust them whatever way you want to. Again, going to be placed in the interior, and everything on the table also looks nice. There's even a candle. And as they find a little bit of decoration, you get some cabinets here another pink piece, so I guess it could be another brain and a stove, so maybe it's something to eat. This would be pretty much impossible to access again after placing, since the other table is basically right next to it, and there's only kind of 2 bricks wide, but also with the extra width of the doors, it's going to be even less. One of my favorite printed tiles so far is the little skeleton there for the wall, and it has been really nice getting all the different printed pieces in this build, whether it is like the different paintings or other decorations throughout the set. After building more of the wall and decorating this room, you have the big rug there, a little bit of a fireplace. On the shelf, we have a couple of different references to the show with the skull, the knife and the letter towards the end of the series, and you build a pretty nice bookshelf with some bottles on top of that as well. So it is a nice little space. I'm liking all the decorations still, and all of the different builds for these have been pretty interesting. Finishing the wall interior for this floor, I feel like the stickers honestly feel a little cheap. They're across multiple parts, and if you don't press on the bricks all the way before you put them on, it kind of ruins the stickers, which happen to me, unfortunately. Again, though, the prints are definitely a strength. You end up building the rest of the furniture to finish the furnishings, which will include 2 different chair builds with the Union Jack as like a pillow. You got the green one for Watson, I believe, goes on one side, and an identical build but in red with the same print goes on the other side for Sherlock. So those are fun little builds. I'm not sure how well a minifigure will end up sitting in there, but one of the characters from the company fits perfectly alongside with the wall decorations. You build a couch, which will fit pretty snug with a little bit of gap on both sides. That was kind of an interesting build, nothing crazy. You also have a lamp to go with that. Again, simple but effective, and a coffee table with a chessboard, as well as a printed newspaper, which I believe was also used earlier. The legs on this aren't going to be like super strong though, so this is another one where you have to be a little careful, probably pressing it down and making sure it is lined up where it's supposed to be. But I do like the idea of having a chessboard, even though, you know, it's a little bit simplified with the scale, obviously. Having all the, I guess, teacups or coffee cups, whatever works too. Finishing the exterior details, you build more of the smokestack, which actually I think this is the first part of building that. And you have another pipe for the rain spout build, which was continued from the first floor. And I've already brought up it's a little strange for a modular type building to not build around the entire wall little bit by bit and build it up. So the front wall here is built separately with some interesting designs for some like lattice leaf work. It's kind of interesting to see that the animal pieces are not printed, even though there are so many printed pieces in this set. So that is something that's different from what Lego would do. But this is a pretty solid piece of building to put on all at once. And hopefully it's not a pain and is easy to just press down. I guess I gotta show it on the other side too. They have a mounted deer head of some sort, which is, I'm pretty sure, in the Sherlock show as well. Yeah, let's see how this goes. Not super hard, but you can see it's gonna have some flex to it. Since it is basically just a build, and the tiles across. Could probably be built a little bit stronger, but looks fine and should hopefully be fine if you're just displaying. The third floor kind of continues the weird trend of building like 2 walls at a time and leaving more empty for now. Gonna guess it's gonna be another like umbrella holder. You got a bed, which is kind of fun. There's a letter that's gonna be hidden underneath the sheet. So another little bit of printed detail that is going to be hidden, but still a cool piece to get. Really enjoy that they are including so many different printed elements versus stickers. Got a dresser as well to just keep furnishing this, making it seem lived in, which is very cool to have all the interior details. For certain builds like this, you probably could, you know, not include furniture or just have like an empty interior, but they are really filling the space. The portraits on these walls are going to have an interesting style where they're kind of anime inspired, it feels like. You build another one of the beds, which is going to be the exact same, just minus the letter. Don't know why I'm having such an issue lining that up. Probably because the painting looks like it's one too low, or just kind of inconvenient place. And the beds are going to be a little small for the characters, but it looks fine, which is what counts, obviously. The dresser build was also fun with some cool detailing for the drawers and some extra detailing on the top. Yeah, I think I probably shouldn't have placed the posters down. I'm just doing things out of order to make filming it a little bit easier since this is such a large build. A very cool piece is the wedge plate here as a tile for the like 2x3 size ones. That is very unique and different. And another little chair just goes there to kind of finish out, I believe, the entire room here. Maybe some more stuff will be on the walls, not done yet. This last room is obviously the most chaotic and least organized, which makes sense since it is Sherlock's room. You have his typewriter, a book with like a Sherlock outline, more copies of The Strand, which is in white and tan, so 2 different colors, and that's just a British magazine that the original Sherlock stories were published in, so you get the white one there as well in the room. And also his violin, and the song print for this is the Spring Song, which was from the season 3 of Sherlock, where he played that at Watson's wedding from what I read. And great decorations. I do really like the different builds they did for the fireplaces. I think those turned out really great. And no complaints here other than, you know, again, this wall is basically just one part, so it's going to be super loose. So there are a lot of different areas where they should have probably built the walls a little bit different to make them stronger. If you're not playing with this, it's probably not going to be a huge deal, and it's a modular, more adult set. So again, probably not going to be a problem. The exterior for this last wall is a little interesting where, you know, the windows are going to be pretty simple and tie into the ones on the floor below. Just decoration on the front though. Going to be loose though, where it just uses these pillar pieces. So those could snap off if you're not careful. I do like the different flower sort of designs they did on the windowsills for all of these. I am interested in the colors though, because it's darker colors or like a brown flower. So I don't know if that is a specific type of flower that I'm just not familiar with. And it is interesting that they used like the hinge bricks on the front there for these walls. So never really seen that before, and probably could have just been a normal brick. But, you know, it's different, so sure, why not? And there's a little bit of a fun design on the inside as well, where they have a fun little build for a corkboard, which is, again, similar to the one found in the modular jail from the Lego set. And everything in here fits pretty well. You got fireplace and ornamental designs. And I feel like every room in this build was just decorated perfectly, and there are a lot of fun details that'll be great for people very familiar with the subject matter, or just a general fan, or somebody that just wants a cool looking room, a little bit of everything for everybody. And of course, to top it all off, you have the build for the roof, which features some very nice sort of designs for the window. Obviously, the bottom half is covered up by bricks, but the top half does have lattice and window combination there. Not going to be anything on the back of the wall here, but it is interesting that each of these are slightly differently designed with the like L plate pieces to kind of wrap around the pieces they use there. So that was kind of an interesting technique. On the side of this, there will be the top of the chimney, which we've been building a little bit of over time throughout the build, and you finally get to top it off, which is probably one of the most monotonous parts of the build, is just using all the masonry bricks, but looks nice and has all that texture, which is also kind of cool. And at the top of that, you got a little bit of smoke. So that is also a nice detail using the Lego ice cream piece there. You have a little bit of a skylight on the top here for some light onto the 3rd floor when you have the roof on, so you can kind of look in there. But that's really it for the roof, and let's put together all of the floors. Process should be pretty seamless since it is just a square building. 2nd floor, this one has the leaf design on it, which could be a little troublesome if you didn't place it correctly. We'll see how that, oh, there's a overhang. Okay. Just got to line up the staircase on the inside there. That is one of the more troublesome areas for just getting it placed correctly. Feels like it is down pretty well. Let's see how easy it is to remove. Little bit tricky since the clutch feels a little too tight maybe, but at least it is holding together. That is also a plus. 3rd floor coming on now too. A little less on the outside to worry about as you're placing it. Pressing that down as well. And this is a very tall building actually. I really wasn't expecting that when I was going into building this. And the roof, which has the chimney. I placed that incorrectly. A little bit of overhang, which is kind of strange since that hooks into the side of the chimney over there. And I feel like that could make it a little bit weaker. To get a better idea of the general scale, I put it next to the Sanctum Sanctorum, which I feel like is the closest to like a normal Lego modular that I do have in my collection currently. Height-wise, the Baker Street apartment is going to be taller, and also just overall footprint since the Sanctum is thinner. And this one's like, I think $100 cheaper. So just on value, you know, you can't beat it. And still looks super nice for being a non-Lego building kit. So nothing to worry about there. I mentioned some structural issues as I'm going through it because this is definitely like a mock, my own creation type build. So they're going for detail. It's going to prioritize aesthetics, which isn't going to always be a negative thing. Like, this is going to be an amazing looking set, especially just on the front profile here. Looks beautiful, lots of different textures, lots of different varying building techniques to give it shapes all over the place. If you get Lego minifigures to decorate around, you know, you could even make it a little bit more detailed, have some scenes going, which is great. And so many fun different parts used that aren't in the Lego catalog that are fun to work with. The leaf work and plant work everywhere was also really pretty and looks super nice. I thought it was really interesting that they have the build for like the chimney going along the side of the building. That's really different and unique. And, you know, it limits your ability to put this next to every Lego build you might have, but it looks cool. And I think it is a very unique take to do something like that. And having the additional texture of tiles and stuff definitely adds to that look too. Any sort of complaints I have with this build are definitely big picture structural ideas for just the main build. Interior wise, all of these rooms for every floor are beautifully designed, and I really can't complain about anything here. I think they did a great job filling the spaces with very unique furniture, very unique decorations. Every printed part was amazing and adds so much to the value of the set. Having the different flavors of the rooms, whether it is Watson's bedroom being a little more organized, and obviously Sherlock's being very messy and crazy. You can just feel a lot of character in the build, and I think that is one of the best parts. Thank you again, Pantasy, for sending this to me to check out. And again, every opinion in this video was my own. I had no requirements to give it a positive review, but just looking at it, it's a great build. You know, the characters are fun. You get a bunch of them. You know, it's different than everything in my collection, but it is unique, so we'll give them points there. Plus, you know, you get the carriage, which is also a nice little side build. So all the details on this build, again, are unbelievable. You're going to have a great time building this if you are a Lego modular fan. And this is way better than the Lego Sherlock set. Hands down, so many more fun elements, and actually having an enclosed building just makes it so much better and gives you more opportunity to play with this if you want to, or even just display it. This is going to be a pretty sweet thing on your shelf. If you want to see more building reviews or custom Lego videos, check out all the content on my channel. Feel free to join as a member if you want to help me out further. Like always, I have been Brick Radiop, and I'll see you in the next video.